There are moments in life when the truth about people becomes painfully visible, moments when a single action exposes what someone has been hiding behind polite smiles, uniforms, or professional roles. Prejudice is one of those things that doesn't need a speech to reveal itself. It shows up in tone, in behavior, in hesitation, in the way a person looks at you as if they have already decided who you are. Keynote number 1 is about that blindness, how prejudice prevents people from seeing true greatness, from recognizing real accomplishment, and from understanding the power that stands quietly in front of them without needing to announce itself. It's about recognizing that bias doesn't just hurt the person it targets, it limits the person who holds it. It reduces their vision, narrows their understanding, and traps them inside a false belief system where they think they can judge someone simply by appearance. Imagine walking into a space where everyone is supposed to be equal under the same rules, the same system, the same expectations. A space where your achievements should speak for themselves. But instead of respect, you receive suspicion. Instead of professionalism, you receive hostility. Instead of being treated as a valued customer or an accomplished leader, you are treated as an outsider who somehow doesn't belong. The pain of that experience isn't just emotional, it's symbolic. It tells you that no matter how far you've come, how many barriers you've broken, some people will still try to reduce you to their limited understanding. They look at you and see only what their bias allows. They don't see your years of leadership, your education, your resilience, or your excellence. They see a stereotype, and their actions follow that blindness. But the deeper truth is this: prejudice comes from insecurity. When people cannot match your discipline, your intelligence, your achievements, or your presence, they try to create reasons to place themselves above you. It becomes a silent competition they're not even aware they're losing. Instead of elevating themselves, they attempt to lower you. Instead of looking inward and improving, they try to diminish what they cannot reach. This is the tragedy of prejudice: it doesn't only attack the target, it exposes the smallness of the person who holds it. Yet, greatness doesn't need to announce itself loudly. A truly powerful person doesn't need to argue, doesn't need to defend their worth, doesn't need to fight to be seen. Because people who know their identity understand that validation doesn't come from strangers. Respect doesn't come from external approval. Worth isn't assigned by someone else's limited perception. When you know who you are, no bias can erase that truth. And what makes greatness truly awe-inspiring is that it remains intact even when others refuse to acknowledge it. When prejudice tries to block your path, you don't lose your greatness, the world simply witnesses it under pressure. When someone doubts your position, your value, or your right to be where you are, they aren't reducing your worth, they're revealing their own inability to comprehend it. True greatness is like a steady flame that burns quietly, sometimes unnoticed, but never diminishing. And when the moment of truth comes, when the person you underestimated reveals their real identity, their real power, or their real influence, it hits harder than anything else. It creates silence. It creates shock. It creates a deep realization that the assumptions were wrong. In situations like the one faced by the CEO, prejudice tried to paint a false picture. It tried to rewrite his narrative. It tried to place him below people who thought they had authority, even though their authority was nothing more than a uniform paired with a mindset corrupted by bias. But what they failed to recognize is that greatness doesn't fade just because someone refuses to see it. In fact, moments of disrespect often become the stage on which greatness shines brightest. Because when a calm, dignified, successful individual responds with composure instead of chaos, it speaks volumes. It shows strength. It shows depth. It shows discipline. And the beauty of such moments is that they expose everything. Prejudice loses its power. Arrogance collapses under truth. And the person who was underestimated stands as a living lesson of what real achievement looks like. People may misjudge you because of what they see on the surface, but their misjudgment cannot touch the excellence you carry within. Their blindness cannot diminish your brilliance. Their assumptions cannot weaken your journey. Because true greatness doesn't need recognition to exist, it simply exists, and eventually, everyone is forced to see it. There is a kind of strength that doesn't come from muscles, status, or loud declarations. It comes from emotional discipline, from the ability to protect your peace even when others are actively trying to disturb it. When someone treats you unfairly, when they question your place, when they speak down to you with a tone dripping in disrespect, the natural impulse is to react. To defend yourself. To prove them wrong. But the true test of character is not how loud you react, it's how calmly you respond. Staying calm in the face of unfair treatment is not weakness. It's not surrender. It is one of the purest forms of power a person can ever display. Because calmness is control, and control is something that prejudice, ignorance, and arrogance will never understand. When the CEO was removed from the seat he rightfully earned, he had every reason to explode. Every reason to confront. Every reason to challenge the disrespect head-on. But the reason his response became so powerful is because he didn't let his emotions dictate his actions. He let his dignity lead the way. That's the beauty of staying calm. You don't let someone else's behavior change who you are. You don't allow their attitude to poison your character. You don't allow their disrespect to pull you down to their level. Instead, you rise above it, simply by refusing to be shaken. Staying calm doesn't mean you don't feel the injustice. It doesn't mean the situation doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean you're okay with what's happening. It simply means you choose not to give your power away. When you react with anger, you let them control the narrative. You let them dictate your emotions. You let them define the moment. But when you stay calm, you keep ownership of yourself, your story, and your dignity. And that calmness becomes a mirror that reflects their behavior back at them more clearly than anything you could ever say. People often underestimate the strength it takes to remain composed when you're being mistreated. It requires emotional intelligence. It requires confidence. It requires an understanding of your own worth that is so deep, so rooted, that even someone else's attempt to belittle you cannot shake it. Calmness is not silence. Calmness is strategy. Calmness is awareness. Calmness is the ability to think clearly in the middle of chaos and choose a response that protects your pride while exposing the other person's ignorance. When someone treats you unfairly, they expect a reaction. They expect you to fight, argue, or lose control. They expect you to confirm their stereotype. They expect you to behave in a way that validates their bias. But staying calm destroys their expectations. It dismantles their assumptions. It forces them to confront their own behavior without the distraction of your anger. And that's why calmness is so powerful. It leaves them with no excuses, no distractions, no misinterpretation. Your silence becomes louder than their disrespect. There is also a deeper truth hidden in calmness. It allows consequences to unfold naturally. When the CEO chose calmness, he wasn't avoiding the situation, he was positioning himself above it. He was allowing the airline staff to expose themselves fully. He was giving them room to make a mistake they couldn't undo. And by the time they realized who they were dealing with, the damage was already done. Calmness often does that. It lets people reveal their true nature without interruption, making the truth undeniable when the moment of revelation arrives. Calmness is also a sign of self-respect. It shows that you value your peace more than someone else's chaos. It shows that you don't need to shout to prove your worth. It shows that you have mastered yourself to such a degree that no external insult can force you out of character. And when people witness that level of composure, it earns a type of respect that anger could never achieve. Even those who doubted you begin to see your strength. Even those who ignored you begin to acknowledge your presence. Calmness, when used in the right moment, creates an aura around you that demands respect without you ever having to say a word. Life will always bring situations where people test your patience, challenge your dignity, or attempt to diminish you. But the person who remains calm is the person who wins the moment. Calmness turns humiliation into opportunity. It turns disrespect into revelation. It turns unfairness into a stage where your true strength can shine. And the most powerful part of all is that staying calm allows you to choose a response that is not emotional, but effective. A response that doesn't just protect your dignity, it amplifies it. There comes a point in every person's life when they must decide whether they will allow the world to define their worth or whether they will define it for themselves. Too often, people surrender their value to someone else's opinion, someone else's judgment, or someone else's bias. But the truth is simple: your worth is not determined by how someone treats you, how they speak to you, or how they perceive you. Your worth is determined by what you have built within yourself, your character, your discipline, your resilience, and your journey. And the moment you realize this, the doubt others try to place on you loses all power. Keynote number 3 is about understanding that your worth isn't shaped by prejudice, it's revealed through it. It's about knowing that the disrespect you face says nothing about you but everything about the person delivering it. In the scene on the airplane, when the staff dismissed the CEO as if he were undeserving of the VIP seat he paid for, their actions carried a message they assumed would diminish him. They treated him as though he was unqualified, as though he didn't belong. But what they failed to realize is that their judgment didn't reduce him. It exposed them. Because when someone else doubts your worth, it only matters if you doubt it too. The moment you understand that their perception is a reflection of their own bias, not your reality, you become untouchable. You become unshakable. People often try to measure your worth through their own limited experiences. They judge you based on stereotypes, assumptions, or societal conditioning. They look at your skin, your clothes, your age, your background, and think they can estimate your value. But what they cannot see is the path you walk to get where you are. They cannot see the years of struggle that shaped you, the victories that strengthened you, the failures that taught you, or the responsibilities that you carry. They cannot see your discipline, your intelligence, or your determination. And because they cannot see it, they assume it doesn't exist. But assumptions are powerless when you know the truth about yourself. Knowing your worth means walking into a room without waiting for validation. It means sitting in a seat without needing permission. It means facing disrespect without letting it define you. When the CEO remained calm and steady, even after being disrespected, it wasn't because he was weak. It was because he was grounded in his identity. He knew that the seat didn't define him. The airline staff didn't define him. Their bias didn't define him. He defined himself. And that inner certainty is what made him unshakable. Being unshakable doesn't mean being emotionless. It means being anchored. It means that no matter how harshly someone tries to push you down, you don't lose your balance. You don't lose your center. You don't lose yourself. The world will always have people who underestimate you. People who cannot handle your strength. People who feel threatened by your success. People who resent your presence because it challenges their beliefs. But when you know your worth, none of that can touch the core of who you are. When someone tries to diminish you, they expect you to fall apart, to react emotionally, to question yourself. But when you respond with clarity and confidence, it becomes a turning point. A moment where their doubt becomes overshadowed by your certainty. A moment where you demonstrate that you are not defined by mistreatment but by your response to it. And when the truth eventually comes out, when they finally realize who you are, what you've accomplished, or what position you hold, their assumptions crumble instantly. Their entire behavior becomes a reflection of their own blindness. Knowing your worth also protects you from internalizing the negativity others direct at you. Too many people allow insults to become self-belief. They allow criticism to become truth. They allow prejudice to become insecurity. But greatness cannot survive in a mind that accepts lies about itself. And that's why the most important thing you can ever build is a strong sense of self-worth, because once you have it, nobody can take it from you. Your worth is not a negotiation. It is not something others get to adjust based on their comfort or discomfort. It is not something that increases when people praise you and decreases when people disrespect you. It remains constant. It remains rooted. It remains yours. And when you carry that certainty into every space you enter, you stop being shaken by how people treat you. Instead, you start exposing who they truly are. In that moment on the plane, the CEO didn't just demonstrate calmness. He demonstrated stability. He demonstrated identity. He demonstrated self-worth. And that is what made him unshakable. Because when you know who you are, no one's bias can break you. No one's disrespect can define you. No one's ignorance can lower you. You rise above it, not by fighting louder, but by standing taller. And that is the true meaning of being unshakable. There are moments in life when prejudice doesn't just show itself, it exposes an entire system built on assumptions, power imbalances, and deeply rooted biases. Most people think discrimination is only about a single rude comment or one disrespectful action, but the truth runs deeper. Prejudice is a structure. It's a pattern. It's a way of thinking that has been practiced so long that people begin to believe it is normal. And the most powerful moments of change happen when someone calmly, intelligently, and strategically reveals just how flawed that system really is. Keynote number 4 is about that revelation, how one smart move, one unexpected action, one well-timed decision can expose an entire system for what it truly is. When the CEO was being mistreated on the airplane, the staff believed they held the upper hand. They believed their authority was unquestionable. They believed their uniforms gave them the right to decide who belonged in a VIP seat and who didn't. But their confidence wasn't built on facts, it was built on bias. They saw a man they assumed couldn't possibly belong in a place of privilege, and without hesitation, they acted on that assumption. This wasn't about a seat. This wasn't about airline policy. This was about a mindset that automatically disrespects people who don't fit a stereotypical image of power. The power of the CEO's response came not from anger or confrontation, but from strategy. While the staff rushed to assert dominance, he took a completely different approach. He observed. He listened. He allowed them to reveal themselves. He let them commit to their prejudice so fully that there would be no room for excuses later. That's the brilliance of staying quiet at the right moment, it gives people enough space to show their true character. And when they finally crossed the line fully, when their disrespect became undeniable, that's when he made one calculated move that would change everything. People often underestimate the intelligence behind staying composed. They mistake silence for surrender. They believe calmness means powerlessness. But the truth is that strategy often wears the mask of patience. And the CEO understood something the staff didn't: real power does not need to announce itself instantly. Real power waits for the right moment to speak. And when it does, it speaks in a way that turns the entire situation around. One smart move can expose the flaws in a system that has been operating unchecked for years. The CEO's action didn't simply defend him, it exposed them. It revealed the bias, the unprofessionalism, the arrogance, and the discriminatory mindset that had been hiding behind company rules. And when someone in authority, someone with influence, someone with a platform highlights such injustice, the impact spreads far beyond one airplane cabin. It echoes across departments. It reaches higher officials. It forces companies to review their policies, their training, and their culture. Because when someone with real power shines a light on misconduct, the shadows have nowhere left to hide. But the brilliance of the CEO's move wasn't only in exposing individual staff members. It was in exposing the mindset that allowed such behavior to happen in the first place. That's what makes moments like these transformative. They don't just reveal one person's mistake, they reveal an entire mindset that needs to be corrected. And once the truth is out in the open, once a discriminatory action is caught clearly, the system can no longer pretend it doesn't exist. It must face the truth. It must correct itself. This keynote is about understanding that change doesn't always come from shouting or confrontation. Sometimes it comes from intelligence. It comes from patience. It comes from allowing the situation to reach a point where the truth becomes undeniable. Because when someone who has been underestimated chooses to act with precision instead of emotion, their response carries far more weight. It has impact. It has credibility. It has authority that cannot be brushed aside. That one smart move can be a phone call, a statement, a report, a message, or simply revealing your true identity at the right moment. It can be small, but its consequences can be massive. Because systems of discrimination are fragile. They rely on silence, compliance, and unchallenged behavior. But when someone breaks that pattern, when they decide not to fold under pressure, the entire system trembles. The truth makes people uncomfortable. It forces accountability. It forces reflection. And in doing so, it reveals who was right all along. The CEO didn't expose the system to seek revenge. He exposed it to create awareness. To bring truth to the surface. To make sure that what happened wouldn't continue happening to countless others who didn't have the power to fight back. And that is the true power of one smart move. It doesn't just protect you, it protects everyone who comes after you. It becomes a catalyst for change. It becomes the beginning of transformation. And it proves that sometimes all it takes is one decisive moment to expose an entire system and show the world exactly what needs to change. There are moments in life when everything changes with a single decision, a single action, or a single choice, and often we underestimate the power that one decision can carry. Most people move through their days believing that change comes slowly, that influence is gradual, that impact is measured over months and years. But there are rare moments when one choice has the power to shift an entire environment instantly, to turn doubt into respect, fear into admiration, and chaos into order. Keynote number 5 is about recognizing those moments and understanding that the courage to act decisively can transform not just your own situation, but the atmosphere around you, the perceptions of those witnessing it, and the trajectory of the people involved. Every environment, whether a workplace, a social setting, or even a crowded airplane, has an energy, an unspoken structure of behavior and expectation, and sometimes that energy waits for a catalyst to reveal the hidden dynamics at play. One well-timed, thoughtful decision can become that catalyst, exposing truths, re-establishing balance, and demanding acknowledgement of who you truly are. Imagine the scenario where a person has been underestimated, dismissed, or even humiliated. The room is filled with tension, people shifting uncomfortably, unsure how to respond. There is confusion, there is a subtle fear of confrontation, and there is an assumption that nothing will change. In that moment, a single decision can break the inertia. It might appear simple, a question asked at the right time, a calm assertion of authority, a refusal to yield to injustice, but the ripples from that choice travel far beyond what anyone anticipates. People around you begin to recalibrate their assumptions, reevaluate their understanding of the situation, and recognize that someone they thought was powerless actually holds a remarkable level of influence and composure. The power of one decision lies not in reactionary anger, not in loud confrontation, but in clarity and timing. It comes from seeing the situation for what it is, understanding the dynamics at play, and choosing a course of action that aligns with your values and your identity. When a decision is made thoughtfully, it does more than correct the immediate problem, it communicates to everyone present that behavior has consequences, that authority and respect are earned, and that injustice will not go unchallenged. The environment itself responds, people adjust, energy shifts, and the entire context of the situation is transformed in a way that words alone could never achieve. In moments where prejudice or misunderstanding dominates, one decision can reveal the truth in ways that are impossible to ignore. The person taking that step demonstrates control, awareness, and leadership. Others realize that assumptions about them were wrong, that their presence cannot be diminished by bias, and that influence is not always about physical position or title, but about integrity and action. The ripple effect of that decision can extend far beyond the immediate witnesses. It can reach colleagues, organizations, and even entire industries when the story spreads, proving that a single moment of courage and wisdom can rewrite narratives that have persisted for years. One decision also carries the power to inspire. Witnesses, whether directly involved or observing from a distance, learn a lesson about resilience, self-worth, and strategic action. They see how standing firm with composure, insight, and decisiveness can turn adversity into opportunity. They understand that environments are not static, they respond to the behavior of those who refuse to be passive in the face of injustice. And that realization plants seeds that grow into long-term cultural shifts, where respect, fairness, and recognition become more than abstract ideals, they become lived experiences for everyone in that space. Furthermore, the person making the decision often gains something equally important, a renewed sense of personal authority and self-confidence. By taking action aligned with your principles, you demonstrate to yourself that you are capable of shaping circumstances rather than being shaped by them. You prove that your influence is real, your judgment matters, and your presence commands attention. That internal confirmation strengthens your ability to make future decisions, knowing that one choice, one clear and decisive act, can change the course of events in ways that ripple far beyond the immediate moment. One decision has the unique ability to crystallize respect, clarity, and authority simultaneously. It can silence doubters, correct misjudgments, and create an atmosphere where fairness and truth dominate the room. It transforms a passive environment into one that actively recognizes and reacts to the presence of someone who refuses to be diminished. And while the decision may appear simple from the outside, its consequences are profound, influencing both the tangible actions of others and the invisible currents of perception, energy, and understanding that define every environment. Knowing who you are is one of the most powerful tools a person can ever possess. It is a force that cannot be stolen, diminished, or manipulated by others, because it is rooted deep within your own understanding of yourself. Keynote number 6 is about that inner certainty, why knowing your worth makes you unshakable, why self-awareness is the shield against disrespect, and why confidence grounded in truth can withstand even the most hostile environments. In life, people will constantly try to define you, to measure you against their own limited perspectives, or to diminish you in ways both subtle and overt. They will make assumptions based on appearances, status, background, or circumstance, and they will act on those assumptions as though they were reality. But when you know who you are, their attempts become powerless because their opinions cannot change the truth of your identity. That knowledge becomes your armor, your guide, and your source of resilience in every challenge you face. Imagine walking into a situation where every person around you has an expectation of who you should be, what you should say, and how you should act. Some expect compliance, some expect hesitation, and some expect silence. When others try to impose their expectations, the person who knows their own worth does not bend. They understand that no external force has the authority to define their value. They are grounded in a deep understanding of their own achievements, their capabilities, and their principles, and that grounding allows them to navigate complex, tense, or hostile environments with confidence. It allows them to act decisively, respond calmly, and maintain control over how they are perceived, not because they are arrogant, but because they are fully aware of the truth of who they are. Knowing yourself also creates clarity in moments of conflict. When someone tries to disrespect you, belittle you, or question your place, it is easy for people to be shaken if they rely on external validation. But the person who knows their worth doesn't wait for approval or acknowledgement. They recognize that respect is earned, but self-worth is inherent. They do not need others to affirm their identity because they already possess the knowledge of their capabilities, values, and achievements. This clarity allows them to act with precision and purpose, responding to challenges strategically rather than emotionally, and ensuring that every move they make reinforces the strength of their presence. One of the most remarkable aspects of knowing your worth is that it becomes contagious. When you operate from a place of certainty, composure, and confidence, it affects the people around you. Observers begin to recalibrate their understanding of your authority, influence, and leadership. Those who initially doubted you begin to respect you, those who underestimated you are forced to acknowledge your abilities, and even those who act with hostility often pause, recognizing the power that radiates from someone who is unshakable in their identity. In this way, self-awareness is not just protective, it is transformative. It changes the dynamics of every environment it touches, because the presence of someone grounded in self-worth demands recognition. Knowing yourself also allows you to rise above negativity without being consumed by it. Life will always have critics, detractors, and biased individuals who seek to manipulate or diminish others for their own sense of power. They may attempt to provoke anger, doubt, or insecurity, but someone who is certain of their own worth does not take the bait. They are immune to the noise because they have established an internal metric for value that cannot be influenced externally. And that immunity allows them to remain focused, calm, and effective even in the face of adversity, turning challenges into opportunities to reinforce their strength and demonstrate their character. Furthermore, knowing your worth empowers you to make decisions with confidence. When you understand your own value, you no longer hesitate or second-guess yourself when confronted with difficult situations. You understand that every choice you make is guided by your principles, your experience, and your understanding of what is right. This decisiveness amplifies your influence, allowing you to lead with authority, negotiate with clarity, and respond to injustice in ways that are both impactful and measured. The person who knows themselves does not react impulsively, they act intentionally, ensuring that their actions align with the truth of who they are and the outcomes they want to achieve. Ultimately, the lesson is clear: self-awareness is not just a personal benefit, it is a strategy, a shield, and a source of unshakable strength. It allows you to navigate environments filled with bias, conflict, or misunderstanding without losing your footing. It transforms challenges into opportunities for influence and respect. It ensures that no one can define your value for you, because your understanding of yourself is stronger than any external force. It builds resilience, confidence, and authority simultaneously, and it sets the stage for every other action you take to carry weight, credibility, and impact. Knowing your worth is the foundation upon which unshakable leaders are built, the cornerstone that protects dignity, and the compass that guides behavior in a world that will constantly try to sway perception and judgment.